Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into Acts 25.127 today.
Oh, yeah. This is where things get really interesting with Paul and the whole Roman legal system.
Yeah, it's like, imagine you're Paul, falsely
You're
accused.
stuck in this system, right?
Exactly, and it's all about political intrigue and religious tension, and of course.
Paul's unwavering faith.
So, a new Roman governor, Festus, he arrives in Caesarea.
And right away, he's dealing with pressure from the Jewish leaders.
About Paul.
About Paul, yeah. They're demanding he gets transferred to Jerusalem.
But it's not a simple request, is it?
No, not at all. They're basically hoping to,
Get Paul away from Roman protection.
yeah, so they can...
To deal with him themselves.
Exactly.
It sounds like they're trying to set up an accident during the transfer.
You could say that.
But Festus, he's not falling for it?
No, Fest sees right through them. He's got to keep things under control, right?
He can't have things getting out of hand.
Right, so he keeps Paul in Caesarea
And promises him a fair trial.
under Roman law, which has got to be a relief for Paul.
Yeah, at least he's got a fighting chance.
Definitely. But those Jewish leaders, they're not giving up that easily.
So then, we've got the scene set for Paul's first hearing before Festus.
It's a recipe for drama, for sure.
Totally. We've got Festus trying to establish his authority.
The Jewish leaders are determined to see Paul condemned.
And there's Paul standing firm in his faith.
This hearing, it really shows that clash between Roman law and Jewish custom.
How so?
Well, the Jewish leaders, they're throwing all these accusations at Paul.
But they can't back them up.
No evidence.
So how does Paul handle all of this?
He denies doing anything wrong, says he hasn't violated Jewish law, hasn't messed with the temple, hasn't done anything against Caesar.
But Festus is in a tough spot.
Yeah, he's caught between a rock and a hard place. He doesn't want an uprising.
So he tries to compromise.
He suggests sending Paul to Jerusalem for trial.
Which I bet Paul isn't too happy about.
Yeah, he knows that wouldn't be a fair trial at all.
So what does he do?
He plays his trump card.
His Roman citizenship?
Yeah. Bingo. He appeals to Caesar.
Wow. Bold move.
He knows it'll guarantee a more impartial hearing.
And takes the decision out of Festus's hands.
Exactly. Festus doesn't have a choice, really.
Roman law is clear.
He has to grant the appeal.
And then, just when you think it can't get more complicated,
King Agrippa and Bernice show up.
oh boy.
Talk about adding another layer of intrigue.
So Festus, he has to explain everything to Agrippa,
But he's a bit unsure about it all himself.
especially all the stuff about the resurrected Jesus.
That's way outside his area of expertise.
And Agrippa, what's he think?
He's intrigued. He wants to hear Paul for himself.
This is getting good.
It's a real cliffhanger.
I know. We've got political maneuvering, religious tension, and now a royal audience.
I can't wait to see what happens next.
Me either.
So Festus, he's in a real bind here.
He has to send Paul to Rome, but
He needs a reason.
he needs something to tell Caesar.
Yeah, because technically...
Paul hasn't broken Roman law, so this whole hearing with Agrippa, it's about more than just Paul, isn't it?
It is. Festus needs to cover himself, make sure he doesn't look bad.
I bet that hearing was quite a scene.
Oh, yeah, you can imagine Agrippa and Bernice, they arrive with a ton of fanfare.
All the officials, all the important
The
people,
big show of power.
and Paul's right in the middle of it.
Talk about intimidating.
I wonder if he was nervous.
Well, he definitely had a tough audience.
But Paul, he was a great speaker.
Oh, yeah. He used that stage to his advantage.
So what does he do? Does he preach?
He starts by talking about his past.
As a Pharisee.
Yeah, he emphasizes how much he knows about Jewish law.
Smart move. He's establishing his credibility.
Showing them he's not some outsider.
He gets it.
Exactly.
Then what?
Then he talks about meeting Jesus.
On the road to Damascus.
Yes, and how it changed his life.
And how he's supposed to preach to everyone.
Jews and Gentiles.
I bet Festus is sitting there like, what is this guy talking about?
Well, you have to remember...
The Romans and the Jews, very different worldviews.
Totally. What Festus might see as madness, it's the core of Paul's faith.
So how does Paul respond to Festus?
He's very calm, very collected.
Doesn't get defensive.
No, he actually says to Festus, I am not mad, most noble Festus, but speak forth the words of truth and soberness. And then he turns to Agrippa.
Because he thinks Agrippa will understand better.
As a Jewish king.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He's really good at reading the room, isn't he?
It's like he's tailoring his approach to each person.
And it works. He appeals to Agrippa's knowledge of Jewish prophecy.
So it's not just a personal story.
No, he connects it to their shared heritage.
And how does Agrippa react?
He's impressed.
By Paul speaking his conviction.
He even says, almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian.
Wow. Even in this super intense situation,
Paul gets to him.
plants that seed of doubt.
It's amazing.
What about Festus, though? Does he change his mind?
Sadly not. He wants to finish the trial, get Paul off his hands.
He doesn't really get it, does he?
Paul's faith, it's not important to him.
So even with Paul's defense.
He's still going to Rome.
But he appealed to Caesar, didn't he?
He did.
So this is all part of the plan.
It's like a redirect. Going to Rome, that's a chance to spread the gospel even further.
It's like every obstacle, it becomes an opportunity for Paul.
A way to reach a wider audience?
Almost like it was meant to be.
It makes you think.
About our own challenges, how we see setbacks.
Maybe they're actually opportunities.
That's a great point.
And it shows how powerful Paul's message is.
It still resonates today.
Absolutely.
So we've got intrigue, a clash of cultures, legal strategy.
In a little divine intervention.
This is better than any movie.
What happens next?
Yeah.
That's for next time.
We'll dive into that in the next episode.
But for now,
Let's think about what we've learned.
we've seen Paul's incredible faith, his strategy,
He's up against a lot.
and the political pressure, the cultural clashes,
Well, there.
and we see how God can work through it all.
It reminds me that even when things are tough,
We can stand strong, like Paul.
and trust that things will work out.
Absolutely. And sometimes we have to stand up for ourselves, like Paul did.
Understand the systems around us.
It's amazing how much of Paul's story is about Roman law and politics.
This is just one chapter, though.
And there's so much more to come.
I can't wait to see what happens.
Paul's story, it's a testament to faith and perseverance.
It's still relevant today.
For sure.
So as we wrap up, let's remember Paul's example.
How can we stand up for what we believe in?
How can we understand the world around us better?
And how can we trust, even when it's hard, that there's a plan?
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Until next time.
So Festus, he's still got that problem, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah, he's got to send Paul to Rome.
But he needs a reason.
And that's the tricky part.
Because Paul hasn't actually broken any Roman laws.
It's all about Jewish customs and these theological debates.
Which Festus just doesn't get.
He's out of his depth.
So he's stuck, right? Can't really explain it to Caesar. So what's he going to do?
He turns to Agrippa.
Because Agrippa understands both sides.
The Roman law, the Jewish custom,
He's heard Paul's testimony.
and even admitted Paul made some good points.
So Festus is hoping Agrippa can help him write that report to Caesar
Make sure it all makes sense.
and makes Festus look good.
Exactly. It's all about politics, isn't it?
So they have this big hearing, right?
Festus, Agrippa, Bernice, all the VIPs.
And they bring Paul in.
It's a very formal affair.
Must have been intense.
Oh, yeah. All those powerful people.
And Paul's fate is in their hands.
It is.
So what does Festus do? Just pass the buck to Agrippa.
Well, he basically lays it all out.
Explains the whole situation.
He says the Jewish people want Paul dead.
But he can't find a good reason to condemn him.
No capital offense, he says.
But Paul's appealed to Caesar.
So he has to send him.
But he needs help figuring out what to write.
That's the gist of it.
So it's a real stalemate then.
You could say that.
Roman law versus Jewish customs.
It's a clash of cultures.
And Paul's right in the middle.
But he's used the system to his advantage.
He's made sure he'll get a fair hearing.
He has.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the big takeaways?
Well, we've seen Paul's faith, his strength.
His ability to think on his feet.
He's in a tough situation, but he doesn't give up.
He uses what he knows to protect himself.
And we see those political pressures, the cultural differences.
It's a reminder that those things have always been around.
And through it all,
We see how God can work.
use those difficult situations for a bigger purpose.
It's inspiring, isn't it?
It is. Paul's story, it reminds us to stand up for what we believe in,
Even when it's hard.
to use our knowledge, our understanding of the world,
To navigate those systems.
and to trust that even when we don't see the whole picture,
There's a plan.
there is.
So listeners, keep exploring, keep asking questions,
Keep diving deep
and we'll see you next time.
for another deep dive.